welcome back to Learn Economy. In this video, we are going to look at the real business cycle theory. We have already got an idea about what business cycle is, and we have seen the interpretations of business cycles given by Samuelson, Hicks, and all. So, what we are going to look at in this video is that we are going into the details of the real business cycle theory. Okay. Now, following the ideas of Schumpeter, Prescott, etc., we have to understand that these people they have they have held the idea that innovations or productivity shocks in one sector can spread to the other sectors or rest of the economy, and this would cause recessions and booms in the economy. Now, in the model of the classical approach, we could see that the cycles are primarily caused by shocks experienced by the aggregate supply and not changes in the aggregate demand. We have to understand the difference between the classical school of thought and the Keynesian school of thought. The classical school of thought have given importance to the supply side, whereas the Keynesian school of thought gives importance to the demand side in order to solve the problems in the economy. Okay. Now, moving to what supply shocks are and what would happen if there is any kind of supply shocks in the economy. Supply shocks occur when business fluctuations are caused by shift in aggregate supply. Okay, and the classical examples are mainly with respect to the oil crisis of the 70s. Sharp increases in the oil prices during the 70s. This has reduced the aggregate supply in the economy, and this has increased inflation and lowered output and employment. As a result, the real business cycle approach holds the view that business cycles are primarily due to changes in technology and does not invoke any kind of monetary or demand side forces. In the real business cycle approach, the shocks to technology, investment, or labor supply change the potential output of the economy, or you could say that they shift a vertical aggregate supply curve. These shocks are transmitted into actual output, especially by the fluctuations of aggregate supply, and are completely independent of aggregate demand. And then you have to understand that movements in the unemployment rate are as a result of movements in the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment due to microeconomic forces such as intensity of sectoral shocks or to tax policies or other regulatory measures. Now, coming to real business cycle in a much more detailed manner, you would see that these kinds of models view aggregate economic variables as the outcome of decisions made by individual agents acting to maximize their utility subject to production possibilities and economic resource constraints. We know what production possibility curve is. We have some scarcity of resources. We experience resource constraint, and within the available constraint or with what is available in the economy, what we have to do is that we have to devote our resources in such a way as to produce certain commodities. We have to split the available resources into diverse sectors, right? So, as these kinds of models have an explicit foundation, especially when it comes to microeconomics, we have to understand how more explicitly the research, the real business cycle models, especially when it comes to macroeconomics. So we have to understand that this kind of production possibilities and are mainly matters of microeconomics. But when it comes to RBC models or real business cycle models, it comes under macroeconomics. Okay, the real business cycle models asks certain questions like how do rational maximizing individuals respond over time to changes in economic environment? What implication do these responses have for the equilibrium outcomes of aggregate variables? Invariably, RBC models address these questions in a general equilibrium valuation framework. The two important features of real business cycle models are explanations for fluctuations in terms of shocks and propagation mechanism through which the effects of shock are spread throughout the economy. Okay, these models emphasize the real shocks mainly in the form of shock to technology, And more recently, we could see that these kinds of models also emphasize the changes in government purchases. Technology shocks change the amount that is produced from given technology of inputs, and government purchase shocks change the quantity of goods available to private economy for the given level of production. As a result, it is important to note that both types of shocks represent real as opposed to the monetary disturbances, and the transmission or propagation mechanism operates through intertemporal substitution of labor. Accordingly, this model allows for changes in employment by making household utility depend upon both consumption as well as work. Let us now construct a simple real business cycle model. Just assume that yt is equal to k T alpha AT 1 minus alpha. Here, this is a labor augmenting technology progress function where capital and labor are paid their marginal products, and the real wage and the real interest rate are given as W T is equal to 1 minus alpha KT divided by ATLT alpha into AT, and RT, that is interest, is equal to alpha ATLT by KT 1 minus alpha. Now, consider the role of technology. It's written as log AT is equal to A bar plus GT plus A hat T, where G is the rate of technological progress and technology is subject to a random shock, which is AT. And now this shock is a first order auto-regressive progress where you can return as A is equal to beta AT minus 1 plus ET, where E is equal to the random variable. And in other words, you could see that sorry, not ET, it's epsilon T. Okay, now in other words, you could see that epsilon T represent white noise disturbances, and they are seriously uncorrelated and random, and epsilon T have a constant mean 0 and variance ET. Okay, and this is a random shock term, so that means that this is a constant term. It has got a mean 0 and epsilon T variance. Okay, and beta is something which is less than 1, and if beta is greater than 1, the model can explode. Now you have to consider the household optimization goal, for which we have to derive the labor supply function. So for that, let's suppose that each household has only one member and total time available is 1 unit. For the sake of simplicity, we can choose 2-period optimization framework. We consider the following utility function. Ut is equal to log Ct plus b log 1 minus L1. Households would solve for optimization problem, which is a maximization U1 plus E minus P U2, which is subject to a constraint C1 plus C2 by 1 plus R, that is equal to W1 L1 plus W2 L2 divided by L plus R. Sorry, I plus R. That means that in here in P is actually a substitutive rate of discount. You have to understand that. Now, from this you could understand that from this you can derive equation number 1, which is equal to 1 by C1 minus lambda is equal to 0. And similarly, equation 2, equation 3, equation 4 and equation 5 would be derived. This equation implies the relative labor supply in the 2 periods responds to relative wage as well as interest rate. If, for example, W1 increases, the household would increase the first period labor supply relative to second period labor supply. Again, a rise in interest rate would lead to increase in the first period labor supply relative to second period labor supply. These kinds of responses of labor to real wage and interest rate are known as the intertemporal substitution in the labor supply. It's important to note that C1 by C2 is equal to 1 by E minus P 1 plus R. From the above analysis, it is shown that a rise in the interest rate would reduce the current consumption relative to future consumption. Now you can consider the output supply function. If the interest rate rises, work effort in the current period goes up. This will lead to rise in the output level. And now if you go for aggregate demand, you can see that at a given time period t, the aggregate demand ADT, that is equal to Ct into R plus IT into R plus GT, C dash T rate t is less than 0 and it is also less than 0. If interest rate goes up, both current consumption and investment would fall, and this would make aggregate demand inversely related to interest rate. Just suppose that aggregate demand increases. In this situation, output supply function move to right, which is shown in figure 4, and output increases from y star to y hat, and interest rate would fall from r star to r. If there is any kind of fiscal shock in the economy, then this would rise, and this would rise here. The YD would shift rightwards, and R would increase, and L1 rises, and output supply would also rise. Intertemporal wage is given by, or wage ratio is given by W1 by W2. 1 plus R, which could be written as W1 into 1 plus R by W2. Here W1 or R, when these rise, then L1 would increase, and that means the leisure falls, and therefore labor supply would be increasing. Coming to the criticisms of real business cycle theory, this theory has been criticized on various fronts when we proceed to explain the concept. First of all, this kind of theory, it stresses more on supply side variables rather than on demand side variables. Then these kinds of theory assume that output is always at its natural level, but we know in reality it is not so. The theory does not make any room for stickiness of wages and prices, and it says that fluctuations in output are movements of the natural level. And in this case, you have to understand that not all fluctuations in output are deviations from natural level, and also it is hard to think of recession at the times of technological progress, and productivity, output, etc. can go down in certain stages. And technological progress would result from many innovations, and this would take some time to diffuse throughout the economy. So it is not convincing that such process would generate short-run fluctuations. And also changes in money supply would have some strong effects on output in the real world. And this, but RBC models have not taken these into consideration. Majority of economists who do not believe that RBC approach provides a convincing explanation, they use this point to criticize RBC. But we have to understand that the approach has proved useful and influential in certain other arenas. So that's all. Please like, share, and subscribe this channel for more videos. And I welcome you to my Telegram group and Telegram channel to discuss your doubts. Thank you. And also, I'll be providing the link of some business cycle theories I have already put in the Learn Economia channel. With that, we end.